In the heart of a vast, dense forest lies a narrow, winding road, seldom traveled and cloaked in mystery. This forgotten path, flanked by towering trees and thick underbrush, seems to stretch endlessly into the wilderness. As the sun sets, the road becomes engulfed in shadows, transforming the once serene landscape into a realm of darkness and uncertainty. The dense canopy above obscures the stars and moon, leaving travelers reliant on their vehicle's headlights to pierce the overwhelming blackness. This isolation is profound. There are no signs of civilization for miles, no lights in the distance, no cell phone service. The only sounds are the rustling of leaves, the occasional snap of a twig, and the faint, eerie whispers of the forest. Ava and John, a young and adventurous couple, embarked on a road trip to break the monotony of their routine lives. Eager to explore the less traveled paths, they decided to venture through scenic routes, seeking the beauty and tranquility of nature. Their journey was filled with laughter and light-hearted conversations, with the open road ahead symbolizing freedom and endless possibilities. As the day progressed, they found themselves on a particularly secluded road, surrounded by a dense forest. It was a route neither of them had heard of before, but its untouched beauty was captivating. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the trees, a sense of unease slowly crept in. They joked about the road being a hidden gem, but secretly both felt the growing isolation. With the fading light, their fuel gauge ominously neared empty. John tapped on it, half hoping it was faulty. But as the last bars of their cell phone signals vanished, the reality of their situation began to dawn on them. They were alone, on an unfamiliar road, with their car running dangerously low on gas. John's attempts to use the GPS for guidance only led them deeper into isolation. The device, usually reliable, now seemed confused, offering contradictory directions that only served to take them further away from any familiar routes. Ava suggested turning back, but the fear of running out of gas before finding their way back was too great a risk. The car's headlights cut through the darkness, the only source of light in the engulfing blackness, creating an eerie tunnel vision as they drove on. Then, the inevitable happened. The car sputtered and came to a reluctant halt. They were out of gas, stranded in the middle of nowhere, with the night growing darker and the forest seeming to close in around them. They were alone, isolated, and vulnerable, with no choice but to wait for daylight, hoping for a miracle or a passerby to rescue them from their unintended trap. Trapped in their motionless car, Ava and John grappled with the reality of their situation. The darkness outside seemed thicker, almost suffocating, as if the night itself was a living, breathing entity. As hours ticked by, the forest sounds grew more pronounced. The rustling of leaves and snapping of twigs, mundane in daylight, now took on a sinister quality. Each noise seemed closer than the last, amplifying their sense of vulnerability. John, in an effort to be reassuring, insisted they were safe inside the car. But his forced optimism did little to ease the mounting tension. The windows, previously portals to beautiful landscapes, now served as barriers against an unseen, imagined threat lurking in the darkness. Their minds raced with fear and confusion. Were they victims of a cruel prank, or was there something more sinister at play? John, mustering all his courage, decided to flash the car's headlights in a desperate attempt to reveal their tormentor. For a brief moment, the forest was illuminated, and the shadows danced away from the light. But it was what they saw in those fleeting seconds that chilled them to the bone. Shadowy figures, barely human in shape, loomed just at the edge of the light's reach. They were too far to discern clearly, but their presence was unmistakable. Ava clutched John's arm, her eyes wide with fear. John felt a cold shiver run down his spine, realizing they were not alone, and what surrounded them was beyond their worst fears. In a panic, they locked the doors and ducked down, hoping to hide from whatever was outside. The car, their once safe haven, now felt like a trap. The figures seemed to be closing in, their movements slow and deliberate. hearts pounding, as the sounds around the car grew louder, more aggressive. It was in this moment of utter terror, when they felt all hope was lost, that the first light of dawn began to creep through the forest. As the night retreated, so did the figures, melting away into the trees as mysteriously as they had appeared. The climax of their nightmare had passed, but the fear and the questions about what they had witnessed lingered, leaving them to wonder if it was real or just a product of their frightened imaginations. As the first light of dawn broke through the darkness, Ivor and John slowly emerged from their state of fear. The forest, now bathed in the soft morning light, seemed less menacing, more like the scenic route they had admired the day before. They cautiously peered outside, half expecting the shadowy figures to still be there, but found only the tranquil forest. The story began on a long-forgotten stretch of highway, cutting through a barren landscape. The road is straight and flat, offering no comfort or shelter, stretching as far as the eye can see. On either side, there's nothing but open, arid land, with occasional tufts of dry grass and sporadic, gnarled trees that have weathered the harsh conditions. In this stark and lonely place stands an old gas station, a relic of a bygone era. The gas station is run down, with peeling paint and faded signs, giving it an eerie, abandoned look. The pumps are outdated, and the small convenience store attached to the station looks like it hasn't been restocked in years. The windows are grimy, obscuring the view inside, and the neon sign that once brightly advertised the station now flickers inconsistently, if it lights up at all. David, an avid traveler with a penchant for exploring offbeat paths, was on a solo journey across the country. He relished the freedom of the open road, with each mile bringing new sights and experiences. His old trusty car, packed with essentials, was his companion on this adventure. As he ventured into a particularly remote part of his journey, the landscape around him grew more barren and desolate. The road stretched endlessly ahead, with no other vehicles in sight. David enjoyed the solitude, finding peace in the monotony of the drive. He was someone who found comfort in his own company, often lost in thoughts or humming along to the music from his car's radio. However, as the evening approached, David realized that he had miscalculated the distance to the next town, and his fuel gauge was alarmingly low. He knew he needed to find a gas station soon. Just as he started to worry, he spotted the old, run-down gas station, seemingly appearing out of nowhere in the vast emptiness. He pulled in, relieved yet cautious, as the gas station looked like it hadn't seen visitors in a long time. The silence of the place was unsettling, and the eerie quiet of the surrounding landscape seemed to converge at this spot. As David stepped out to refuel his car, a sense of unease crept over him. The place felt abandoned, yet there was a strange sense of being watched. Unbeknownst to him, his simple stop for gas was about to turn into a night of mysterious and unsettling events. As David began refueling his car, he couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that something was off about the gas station. It was too quiet, the only sounds being the faint whirring of the old pump and the distant howl of the wind. The convenience store attached to the station was dimly lit, its interior shadowy and unwelcoming. Curiosity getting the better of him, David decided to explore the convenience store, hoping to find someone, perhaps the owner, or at least some snacks for the road. As he stepped inside, the door creaked loudly, breaking the silence and echoing through the store. The shelves were sparsely stocked, covered in dust, and the air was stale. It felt like stepping into a place frozen in time. While browsing the shelves, David heard a faint, muffled sound that seemed like a cry for help. It was coming from the back of the store. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, David noticed something even more unsettling: small red lights blinking intermittently around the room. They were surveillance cameras, hidden in plain sight. The realization hit him like a cold wave. He was being watched. Trying to stay calm, David searched for an exit, but the door he had come through was now inexplicably locked. He was trapped. His mind raced with questions. Who was watching him? What did they want? Was this some sort of twisted game? The store, once merely old and rundown, now felt like a carefully staged trap. David's sense of isolation intensified as he understood the improbability of anyone passing by this forgotten gas station on a deserted highway. Then he heard it, a faint, static-filled voice coming from a hidden speaker. It was mocking, playing a twisted game of hints and riddles. David realized that his only chance of escape was to play along with this demented game. Each riddle led him to different parts of the store, revealing more hidden cameras and bizarre clues. David's ordeal in the dark, eerie store reached its peak as he frantically followed the riddles and clues given by the disembodied voice. Each riddle solved seemed to only lead to another, more perplexing and disturbing than the last. David's sense of reality began to warp under the pressure and fear. The game felt endless, a psychological maze with no exit in sight. In a moment of clarity amidst the chaos, David realized that the voice was not just toying with him, but was also guiding him toward a specific part of the store. The final riddle led him to a concealed door behind a row of dusty shelves. His heart pounded with a mix of hope and dread as he pushed the door open, half expecting to find his way out or the person behind this nightmare. Instead, he stumbled upon a small, cramped room filled with monitors showing live footage from the hidden cameras. The screens displayed various angles of the store, and in the center of this setup was a single, ominously blinking red button labeled End Game. The voice, now clearer, goaded him to press the button. David hesitated, fearing a trap, but realizing he had no other options left. With a deep breath, he pressed it. Instantly, the store was flooded with light, and the front door unlocked with a loud click. The voice, now laughing, revealed the chilling truth. David had been an unwitting participant in a sinister, reality show-like game, broadcasted to an unknown audience. Shaken and disoriented, David stepped out of the gas station into the bright light of day. The reality of what he had just experienced was hard to grasp. He felt a mix of relief and anger, his emotions raw and overwhelming. The game was over, but the psychological impact lingered. David drove away from the gas station, leaving behind the eerie silence and the chilling memories. As he reconnected with the more familiar sights of the highway, his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. He grappled with the realization that he had been a pawn in a cruel and voyeuristic game, his fear and panic reduced to mere entertainment for others.